Hello, all. Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon. So, today we'll be talking about data upgrade to Business Central 27 from Business Central 26, as this is the time of the year when the product is available, and we also have cumulative update 1 released. So, why not? Let's spend some time to understand how you do an upgrade, data upgrade from Business Central 26 to 27. So, Microsoft have their article available, which is upgrading from Microsoft system and base application of version 27, it says, but it's actually upgrade to version 27. Don't worry about the link. The link will be available in the description as well as on the pinned comment. So let's get started. Just remember that you can only upgrade to version 27 either from version 26 or 25. You can't go before that. If you are before version 25, then go back and look at the upgrade playlist on YouTube, and you will find videos of how to upgrade to version 25 from a prior version. That becomes a mandate. Once you're on version 25 or 26, you can then upgrade to version 27. In today's video, we'll be talking about upgrading from version 26 to 27, and we'll be following these steps listed here. I have a pre-built in ready PowerShell script which you can use, will be available in GitHub also. Okay, let's read it through. There are some variables that they have used that you'll see later. You need to install version 27, which is already done. You can see the video on the installation playlist. And once you're done with it, then if you have you should take a backup of your database before doing this, and then disable the data encryption. If you are using data encryption, make sure you disable it. Let's see how you check that. Okay, so if you look for encryption, data encryption management, if it is enabled, then what Microsoft article is suggesting, which is required, is that you export your encryption key and disable the encryption at that moment. After the upgrade, you can go back and enable the encryption again. Okay, so now all these commands will run on administration cell. You can either use administration cell or use PowerShell, which I'll be showing in this video. Now, before we do that, there should be a reference of, and I don't see it, so let me search for it because people get confused about it. Okay, so before that, you need to make sure that you have reviewed the upgrade compatibility matrix. Now, this is very important that you review Business Central upgrade compatibility matrix, because in this matrix, Microsoft explains from which version of 26 in this case you can upgrade to version 27. Now, that matrix exists because there are upgrade code which are written inside your base app and other apps, and you cannot directly go from, let's say, a CU5 to a CU0 and so on and so forth. Okay, so let me try to explain you. For this video, we are doing version 26. So if you are on version 26.0 to 26.5, then the minimum version that you need to be is 27.0. You can always go up hand, as in from any of these versions you can come to 27.1, or in future you can go to 27.2. But let's take an example that if you are on 26.7, so if you are on 26.7, then you cannot go to 27.0 or 27.1. You'll have to wait till 27.2 is released. That's how the upgrade compatibility metrics are written. It tells you the minimum version of the later release that are compatible for upgrade. So from 26.7, you can either, the earliest version that you can go to is 27.2, which should be released next month, or any higher version going forward. Hopefully that's clear. If not, let me know into the comments and we'll talk about it. Okay, so you have installed it, you have set up the keys. The first thing is you need to uninstall all the extension from your current environment. Now, I did a video about what apps you should have and what apps you should not have, which may be confusing for some people, but for today's example, I don't have all the apps that were released for 26.2. Let's assume this is my minimum set of apps that my customer need. What happens if you do this exercise with your customer, that they only keep the extensions that they need, is it surely helps with the performance. At the same time, it also makes it easier to upgrade because you don't have n number of apps which your customer may or may not be using in that case, right? So I have the core apps, which is application, business application, business foundation, and system application. These are kind of, from an NAV perspective, builds up your whole base app, and then rest are things that my customer uses. I did not took a ISV, or sorry, a PTE in this example, but the steps more or less remain same. We'll talk about it if needed. And I have two companies into it, Cronus USA and Test. This is pointing to BC 260 right now. So the first thing that I need to do is uninstall all the apps. Now what you do is you go ahead and let me close PowerShell. Make sure to run your PowerShell as administrator. Once you run it as administrator, this gives you flexibility to run these scripts, which we'll do now. So let me load the first one if I have it handy. Okay. So the step one is first loads the module. Now this module makes it possible to run these commands from PowerShell. Otherwise, you can always use administration cell. If somebody is interested into administration cell, how to do it, let me know. The next video that I'll be recording just after this will be done on administration cell. Once you load it, what happens is all your business and PowerShell commands are loaded here, and these are what we need. Now the first thing that we have to do is uninstall all the apps. Now before I do that, I just wanted to kind of explain you something. Okay, there are two types of app. One are with the tables and schema and all, and other are called symbol only. Now why I'm talking about it is I see that people get confused about symbol onlys, and they assume that the application object or those are the only apps which are with the symbol only. So we should actually see how many apps are there with symbol only. So right now we only see that there is only one app, which is a system app, which is with the symbol only. So in the process of doing this upgrade step, what Microsoft recommends, which makes sense, is first get the list of all the extensions that you have and then uninstall all those extensions. You can do that by using a single line of command, which is this, and then it says unpublish all system symbol, which means symbol only app. Once it is done, if you are multi-tenant, then dismount the tenant and stop the nav service or BC service. Sorry. Going back here, what I can do is now I can run this command to say uninstall all my extension for version 26. Now what this will do, let's try to read it. The first part, which is get nav app info server instance, my service name, and my tenant, it gets all the extensions that are there. And then whatever the output that comes to it was fed into this part of the equation or the command, which is uninstall nav app, where it takes the name from the first, the version from the first, and does a force. Now uninstalling an app with the force parameter doesn't mean that it deletes any data. It just doesn't ask you for confirmation because we are doing it a lot at the same time. If you notice, you see some of the extension which you didn't find on the list when we looked at the extension management. For example, exclude API v2 and exclude anything that starts with an exclude. If you don't know the reason why you can't see it, wait till and I'll explain you why you don't see them there. So right now what it is doing, it is uninstalling all the extensions that are there. Once it is done, I'm going to unpublish all these extensions. So let's run through that. This time it is going to unpublish all the extension because we'll be replacing these extensions, and there's an error because there is a dependency of an app which I'm trying to install. So I get an error message. You don't have to worry about it. You can rerun that command as the child or the dependent app will get installed on the uninstalled on the first run. When you rerun it, the parent app will be unpublished then. So we got two of them. One said that the extension cannot be unpublished, which is the application from Microsoft, and email connector and this because it's needed by some of these. So you can't just remove apps without references. So you'll have to remove the childs first and then the parent. So if you get an error message on this step, don't worry, just let it complete. And if I can drag this window here, so it's just trying to unpublish all the apps that are there, and once it completes, I'll rerun it again. Keep rerunning this command until unless you don't get any error message. Like I got it again, that means I'll have to run it again to remove the parents of the apps which were removed in this go. Now can this be done better? Maybe, we'll have to see that, but that's how it is. It's just the cross dependencies of these apps which are stopping them to be unpublished at the same time, which makes complete sense. Hopefully this is our last run of this. So when we run this, I don't think that we'll get an error message, and that completes this step. Last, more or less, is this, where we get remove all the symbols as we saw a little bit earlier, which will remove all the symbols which are in this database. Last but not least is to stop the service. Now with this, my business central 26 service will be stopped. Okay, so we are good here. You need to close PowerShell because we have completed till task 3. We'll come to task 4 now, and the reason we have to close the PowerShell is because it was pointing to my Windows 26 libraries, and now I have to change and point it to version 27 libraries. So I'll have to stop it and then start it again. Okay, so let me do step 2. Now hopefully my database name is correct. Let me see. Yes. Okay. So I'll go to the article because there are some long running steps. I'll try to explain you here. If it doesn't work, I'll go back there. The first thing, which you'll not find in the article because they Microsoft suggests you to run administration cell. If you do that, you don't have to run this one. But I'm importing module which brings all business cell 270 command or 27 commands into this PowerShell from version 27. Then I'm converting the database by providing my database name, database server, to an high version. Now, if you compare it from the NAV perspective, look at it from a perspective of you are opening, let's say, a NAV 2018 database to a Business Central 14 executables. Because there is no exe now, so there is a PowerShell which is invoke nav application. Here, I'm configuring the service of my Business Central 27 environment, which is I'm setting up that the database server is my local host. If you have a database instance, then enable this and assign the value of it. And then here I'm assigning the key for database name, which is my database name that I've just converted. And let me restart it while I'm talking about it. It takes some time. And then I'm disabling the task scheduler. Now it's important that you disable your task scheduler so that if there are job queues which may run, you don't want to take those chances. So you are disabling the task scheduler on your version 27 at that moment, in this moment. All right. So with this step, what we have done is we have technically converted our version 26 database to version 27, and we have mapped the parameter on my service tier. Now typically I explain how you import the license, which is in step, but today I'm going to take a little bit of chance because few releases ago Microsoft announced that you don't need a developer or a partner license to upgrade a business central environment. So let's try to synchronize the tenant. Now the whole idea of running a sync is to make sure that everything is in connected and there are no problems associated with it. Now I'll explain what I'm doing here in a while, but it takes time, so I'm going to run it so that we can keep talking about it. And then surely the restart. Okay, so I've started running this command, which is publish nav app and all those. Let me go back to article in the meantime. Okay, so coming back here, the task 4 was to convert your application database to version 27. This task run the technical upgrade of application database to convert it to version 27. This conversion updates the system table to the newer schema of version 27. It provides the latest platform and performance enhancement which came with the latest version. It adds the system symbol, if you remember, which we unpublished in the step 1, which are set based on version 27. So the conversion adds the system symbol for the version of the database, so you don't have to manually publish the system extension. How you do that? You start the administration cell as administrator, like we did PowerShell. You can do administration cell, and then you run this command, which is invoke nav application database server application database name. Once completed, you will see something like this. When the database is Azure SQL, you might get this error. If you find this, then you will have to scale up your database resources in Azure SQL and then run the conversion again. Now conversion to version 27. Or configuration to version 27. Now as we have technically converted the database, now it's time to set the service tier so that the PowerShell or in future the client will be able to access it via service. Because there is no administration panel now, what you do is you do it via PowerShell command. The first one is to set the database name. Second is disable task scheduler. If you have a database server different, you also set that. And then at the end, you restart the service to make sure that everything is enabled. Now here it says that you need to import version 27 license to the database. Now it doesn't clearly specify that do you need a developer license or a customer license, but here just by looking at it, I see that it's trying to mention that you need a partner license, which I'm taking chances, as I said earlier today, to see how it works without the partner license. Once you're done with that, what you need to do is you need to synchronize the tenant. What it does, it makes sure that your database is ready for the new extensions, and it makes sure that everything is in place. If you are in multi-tenant, then you will also have to mount the tenant, which is not part of this video, so we'll skip that. And then you run the sync nav tenant command. What it does, it checks that everything is in place and the system is ready for the upgrade, more or less. The next step, which is task 8, is to publish extension. Now if you remember, in the version 26 or the step 1, what we did is we unpublished and uninstall all the extension because they were pointing to version 26 at that moment. And we wanted, as a part of upgrade, to upgrade those extension to version 27. At this moment, what it's suggesting is you first publish the system application symbol because that's the first app that's necessary for Business Central. You can find it on product DVD. I'll try to show it to you if I can. I have extracted them here and I call them core apps. So I have these copied from product DVD here. If you guys want, let me see if I can open the product DVD for you. Okay, give me a minute. Okay, here it is. Okay, so this is the product DVD. Inside the product DVD, you will find a folder called applications where all the apps with respect to that version will be available. You will find, as the article mentioned here, this app file into application system application source folder. So what I've done is application folder, source folder. I've just copied this and placed it here for kind of simplifying the steps, right? So the same activity will be for all Microsoft app which your customer is using, but with other apps later. Right now, we are only considering our 4 core apps. The first one is a system application. The second one is a business foundation application. And the third one is the base application, which is available. And then the last one is Microsoft application, which is your new application app file, Microsoft application app file. Microsoft step says that if you have new versions of Microsoft extensions, you should publish that, but I prefer to keep them separate. I'll explain why I want to keep them separate. And I'm not also publishing any non-Microsoft extension if there are any. I'll do it at a later stage. If you have extensions which you think will be compatible with 127, it's a point where you can recompile them by running the test, which I technically believe that you should be doing it. You should always have newer version of your extension for the major update. Once this is done, which is happening for us right now, what we need to do is we need to synchronize tenant extensions. So let's wait, and what I'll do is, as it is still running, hopefully, let me see. It's still running. Once it is done, we'll come back and move forward with it. I'll pause the video for a while and then we'll come back once it is completed. Okay, so the app has been published. Now, before we move further, let's run this to show you what happens when you run publish. So if you run get nav app info and add server instance, whatever your services, and then make sure to add tenant default, otherwise you'll not be able to see all the properties and tenant specific properties, and then do a pipe without hyphen grid view. Now what I'm telling it to give me all nav app info, which is all application information from this service for a default tenant, and provide me all properties in a grid view. So when I do that, what happens, it populates a grid like this. Now let's read it through. It says this is your service. These are the apps that we just published: Business Foundation, System Base, and Application with these versions. They are published. Yes. They need upgrades. It says no. What is their synchronization status? It says not synced. It says are they installed, and it says no. Just remember this, and we'll see how this information changes after our next step. One more thing to highlight here is when you look into extension data version. Extension data version means what version the data is in. Your app might be on 27.1, but the data, underlying data on these apps tables is actually in 26.2. Okay, so let's close this, and now let's run on another set, which is synchronization of apps, and I'll walk you through around this. Now the synchronization command starts with sync nav app, and then you provide the service name. If you only have you doing single tenant, you can skip the tenant, and then the app that you want to synchronize. Now they should be in the same order, the way they were published, and then the version that you want to sync. Now mentioning version is very important, because at this moment while doing upgrade there are actually two versions. One is 26.2 and one is 27.1. So you need to be very specific which app need to be synchronized, and that you do by specifying the version. Now if you go through the article, that is exactly the next step. Synchronize tenant with extension, which you do with what it does verify that there are no schema change which cause a destructive change. It just verifies, for example, if in a table you have a field of length 10 and now it's a field length of 20, great. But if it is a field length of 10 and in the future version, which is 27 in this case, the field length has been reduced to 8, that causes sync error. So synchronization verifies that. So you follow the sync step for each application one by one with the version in the same order that you have published this. So I can see that my synchronization has been completed. Now let's run the same command as we did earlier, which is get nav app info server instance and then give me on a grid view. Let's see what changed on the grid. Now it says the same thing here. Nothing have changed here. It says is published, yes. Sync state, it's synchronized. It still says need upgrade is false, which is wrong. It should say that yes, it needs an upgrade, and the extension data version is this. So after running the sync step for all the apps that you have ran it for, you will notice that the sync state has been completed to synchronized. We'll see the need upgrade step after this. Okay, so once we are here, and let's go back to the article, because we have only done the 4 core apps, we will be only running till here. We'll skip this part and we'll do it later. Now the next task is to upgrade the data. Now data upgrade, as the data in Business Central resides in individual apps, so each app need to be upgraded. So in the same sequence as we did the synchronization or publishing, we're going to run the upgrade data. How you do that? You specify the start nav app data upgrade, you specify the server, you specify the name of the app that you are trying to upgrade, and then the version of that app. As I said, there are multiple apps. To be very clear which app you are upgrading, you need to specify the version. Run the data upgrade installation of an extension in order of dependency, which is system application, business foundation, base application, and application. That same sequence need to be followed while you are running upgrade data. When you run the start nav data upgrade, it upgrades the data, but it also automatically installs the new app on your tenant. Then you do for business foundation, same here. Then you run for the base application followed by the application extension. So all these should say upgrade true as well as is installed true. So let's look at that. Okay, it's done. The upgrade is done. So let me run the tenant info to see what happened. So now if I look at it, you'll notice that the extension data version after the upgrade have changed to 27.1 rather than being from 26.2. It has been updated to 27.1. So the upgrade step does this. And also you'll notice that these all apps are now installed. So you don't have to go ahead and manually install them, because upgrade step automatically installs them. Now, before we move to the next section on the article, let me run this. It may give some error. Don't worry, it happens. Sometimes these commands are wrong from Microsoft side, and I'll give it for them because this is not that important. But I'll run this for the namesake. You should always run all the commands which are listed. At this point, Microsoft article says upgrade the new version of other extensions, which I'm not doing right now. And then there is a step which I forgot to add, but it's only for multi-tenant. If you have multi-tenant, then for each tenant, run the start nav data upgrade to run for all. Okay. Then it says install the new Microsoft extension, which I'm not doing right now. And then what we're doing right now is updating the control add-in. Now control add-in come in zip packages. They are with your product DVD, and they get replay or updated when you run the following commands, which are listed here. So I just copied and pasted them here. Some of them ran, some of them had any errors. I'll leave it to Microsoft. Once in a while there are some errors in these. Okay, last but not least, at this point a business center 27 should be operational, not business center 260. If I do 270 and do this, I should be able to log into my business center 270, and I should have everything in place from my extension and data. It's not yet over, so don't leave if you are thinking that it's over. We're going to talk about some of the post data upgrade step, which based on my experience I have seen people leave, and that causes a confusion at the later stage. So when you upgrade this, you also have to update the application version on help and support, and you also have to update the what we call that. It doesn't list it here, but I know it's important, so I'll explain you what that is in a while once it gets loaded. Okay, so our business central 27 is loaded, both the companies are upgraded, and if I go into my help and support, what I see is it says 27.1, which is correct. And anything else? Nothing much here. It says version 27.1. Okay. And then if I go into my extension management, I actually only see my 4 core extension, which I have published, synchronized, and upgraded. But let's move ahead and see what I'm trying to do here on my PowerShell. There's a command which is get nav application based on a server instance. So if you do that, let's see what it shows right now. It says it doesn't say application version, which is weird because it should say 26.1, 26.2. You also have to update this version. It says application family, which is good, but it doesn't say application version. So if you have to set this, you have to run this command, which is set nav application, which sets this, then synchronize this and upgrade this, which is one simple step, nothing major there. So let's quickly run this. Okay, it doesn't find an application version step. Okay, that means, okay, let me try again. Okay, let me see. There is an application version. I don't know why it doesn't accept it. Maybe the name has changed. I don't know. I can make sense out of it, but let's see. Okay, so I set this, try to set this again, and it says it is not found. So it seems going forward you don't have to run this. It was a pre-step earlier, but it seems you can skip all these 3 steps. So you just need to update the solution version So I'll change this, update solution version. Okay. Now this, just update the server configuration and say this is pointing to the base app ID. So when you run this, it just sets it and you are good there. Okay. So that's a change. That was new for me also, that they removed that step and they don't need that anymore. Okay. Now we are done till here. But what about our other apps which were there? Now for each app, including your PTE and even your third party apps, if you're using uh, from your partner ecosystem, you'll have to follow the same set of steps. What I've done is let me try to publish all of these, let's say. Okay. Told you about the exclude. We'll talk about it in a while. So what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to publish all these extensions, and now these extensions come from my version 27 product DVD, and these are those apps which my customer was using. So what I've did is from my product DVD, I copied in the same way as I did for the core apps. I copied other apps that my customer was using into a folder, and then I splitted them into two folders, 1 and 2. The one contains the apps which have 0 or at a max of dependency on the core apps, and in the folder 2, apps 2, the apps which have dependency surely on the core apps from Microsoft, but additionally they have dependencies with the ones. So first it'll try to publish the first one because they are prerequisite for 2 to be published. So first we'll publish all these apps, and then we'll publish the second set of apps because these apps, 3 apps, need some of the dependency on these apps. So identify what apps your customers are using and then publish them in the same order. Identify what dependencies those apps have, otherwise you will end up with some error messages. So if you set the right order of your apps based on their dependency sequence, you'll not end up with the error message. Once it is done, which is still running because there is a huge set of it, I'm going to run the same sync step of all the apps that I have which my customer is using, again in the same sequence, which is the apps with 0 or dependency only with the core apps, and then the apps which have dependency with the core apps plus any of these apps. Once you have found out that, and once you are done with the synchronizing or even publishing, you can actually get a list of these apps available here. So if I refresh this page, the apps which are getting published will also be visible here. If you want, you can actually run the sync and install together from the client itself. So let's say, for example, if I want to manage data archive automatically, I can do an install from here. But I'm not trying to install it, I'm actually trying to upgrade it. So once you publish, don't come here and install it because that will break the whole logic of upgrading the app. So make sure that you install it, or sorry, upgrade it from the PowerShell so that you don't end up with issues. So the publishing is over, as you can see here down there. Let me bring it up. All the apps are published. Let me run the sync step. It's doing the same thing. It is synchronizing the apps with the existing apps because there were apps prior to this on version 26 which my customer is using, and the sync step just verifies that there is no data deletion out of it. Now while this is happening, let's pay attention to what apps I got versus what apps I had on my PowerShell command so that you understand the logic about the exclude part. So if I try to zoom this out and look at the name, you'll notice none of the exclude one was visible here. What you see is data archive, data search, Dynamics BC Excel report, email things, late payment predictions, on-prem permission North America, and recommended apps. You don't see any of these which are tagged as exclude. And I got an error here for SMTP connector. It says the name might be different for SMTP connector 1. So let's identify the name of it. Okay. How you can do that? You can just do a get nav app info and then path of it directly. I'll provide you the detail. It actually is called email SMTP connector, which is the right name I have given. Let me see which app failed. It said email SMTP connector, no published extension matched to the specified parameter. Okay, we don't see an SMTP email connector, email SMTP connector. We do see that, and if I refresh it, yeah, I do see a email SMTP connector, which is here, and I use the same name here, SMTP connector. Extension matches the value. On-prem permission. Okay, there was one on-prem permission which failed. So let me just check. Okay, the name might be a little bit different here. So let me see. It's on permissions. On-prem permissions NA in bracket. Okay, so let me try to synchronize this one. This one did not got synchronized. So let me just select this and sync it again. Okay, so the sync is done. Now in the same way, I'm going to run the upgrade step for this, and then at the end we'll find out about the exclude piece. Before we do that, do you want to see the, where is that, get app info? Because now there will be a bigger list of apps which is here, and if you notice that if I short it by this, all these have extension data version set as 26.2, so they need an upgrade to bring the data back into 27.1 stage. For that, we are going to run the upgrade step. The upgrade step will bring the data back, as well as it will also make sure that these apps get installed in your extension management window. So as this is running, you will start noticing that some of these apps will start getting installed as they get as they get upgraded. Now the reason of doing it this way is each app has its own upgrade logic, so you don't actually rely on any other app to run the logic of this. For example, if I have this recommended app, for example, or let's pick another app, email current connector, current user connector. The base app will have no upgrade logic about this. The only upgrade logic that will reside will be inside this particular app. So I should not be worried about upgrading this app while doing my base app upgrade, because that surely creates a clutter, and then in every project you have to kind of reinvent the wheel while building that script. Using this route which I'm explaining you makes it simpler that your step 2 command remain as it is for any project that you're doing for upgrading to version 27, and then rest, the only thing that changes is step 3, and you don't have to rewrite this script for your projects every time. Okay, now what changed? Everything got published or installed, and if we go back and see the extension data version now in my PowerShell script, you'll notice that the extension database version data version is now flipped to 27.1 for every app that my customer was using. Okay, now last but not least is we haven't talked about the exclude. So you don't notice that there are some apps which are not visible here, but if you go into your zoom, or what we call that inspect page in your business central and across any version, right, and go into the page filter, you'll notice that there is a filter applied which says don't show anything which is an extension, only show anything which is a designer or an extension, where the tenant visible property is set to yes, and if name does not include the word exclude. So even in your app, if you use the word exclude underscore exclude underscore, those apps will not be visible in your extension management. Now, what are those apps if you look at it? Uh, exclude API v1, v2, bank deposit, business events, client add-ins, email loggings, master data management, plan configuration, and report layout. If you pay attention to all this set of apps, these are the apps where Microsoft don't want you or anyone else to do any modification or any dependencies to these apps, because you don't have permission to extend these apps. So to keep your screen clear on your extension management and not to get confused out of it, Microsoft, I'm assuming this, uses the word exclude so that they are not visible. Now remember one more thing. Why I'm talking about the exclude one is because I have seen in some of the projects that I'm doing these days, which were done by other developers or partners in the past, they forget that these apps exist and they don't upgrade these apps. It's important to upgrade each and every app on your customer tenant if they are using it, either it's visible or behind the scene. So always use either the PowerShell commands or the administration cell to identify the actual list of apps that your customers are using to get a fair understanding of what you have to upgrade. Hopefully this video made sense. I think it went a little bit longer, but it was important to talk about all these important points. I'm going to do another video about 25 to 27. Again, based on the countries which most use this channel, I'm surely going to pick one of those, and we'll do an upgrade video from 25 to 27 as the next video in this channel. At this point, what you have to do, if you think this was useful, hit the like button. If you think this will help someone else that share this with them. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, do help us by subscribing to the channel. If you have business related queries regarding business center upgrades, implementation, support, reach out to us. We are happy to help. Email us at info@consulting.com and we'll connect with you. I'll see you sooner than later into the next video. Till then, keep learning and keep sharing whatever you're learning. Thank you and have a nice day.